Yes, invitations went out to all the surrounding wards, but obviously with the shortness of time, whereas the Cathays council would obviously know what was going to be published in advance and could have had everything set up ready for you, but they didn't. So we've done it at very short notice, and we appreciate that some representatives who would have liked to be here, it's not been possible.
Oh, sorry, I didn't see your faces coming.
So you don't look scary, so why are they scared? It's not they're scared of you, but they're scared of you knowing the truth. As Chris referred to, there's been a lot of things on Facebook, there's a lot of things in WhatsApp, chat and what have you, things that were said on doorsteps, things that were said during the electoral campaign. And the campaign team asked me last night if I would just kind of set the scene, give it some parameters, and start from the basis of what is known and publish fact. So that's my role tonight, is to help you root kind of your thoughts, your questions, your concerns on what is published, verifiable fact. So I've done it as fact numbers. So fact number 1, the covenant protects land and its use. It specifies a detailed area. It's with the land registry, so it's very clear what the area is. Its use is for recreation and leisure as open park space for the people of Cardiff. So remember, it's open and it's for people. It's not restricted to certain times of the day, or when a school may or may not be open, and it's not restricted to where you live, so it's open to all the people of Cardiff. That's the first fact. We have the references here if you need them, if we need to consult them. Fact 2, the council is the sole trustee and guardian of the covenant. They are bound by law to uphold and protect that covenant. That is a fact. They can't get out of it. They are responsible to oppose any proposal to change that covenant. So you can see straight away there is going to be a problem. They want to build a school on it, but they have to oppose themselves. Fact 3, that protection set up 100 years ago is as true today as it was then. It has protected that land for the last 100 years. It's done its job really well. Little bits have been chipped off for various things, but the main area that the Marquis of Bute wanted the people of Cardiff to enjoy in this part of Cardiff has been kept safe by the covenant. And tonight you'll hear later on from other people on the campaign team why that covenant needs your help and how you can help to keep it going for another 100 years. Fact 4. The school's consultation records that a new school is to be built on Maindy Centre. Sorry, but I do think it's important because on social media, 1 or 2 people who would like the school to go ahead have been accusing me of making things up. And so the school's consultation said it would be built on the Maindy Centre site. There's a plan that has been included. Fact 5. After consultation went through all its legal phases, the plan was unchanged. They had the opportunity to say, we'll listen, we'll perhaps come back with different options, but it was unchanged, and they went to the next stage of the legal process to do with providing a new school, which was the issuing of a statutory legal notice. This went out on the 29th of June and expired on the 26th of July. The council, without this legal notice, could not move forward with anything. So it went out there, it expired, it's now legal. And this says, replace the Cathays High School buildings with new build accommodation on the Maindy Centre site adjacent to Crown Way and North Road. Couldn't be clearer. That's what they put in the legal notice. That is what they intended to do. When that had completed its journey, it then went to scrutiny, which is how things are done. We won't go into how that works, but again, the papers provided to scrutiny by the Education Department said, replace the Cathays High School buildings with new build accommodation on the Maindy Centre site adjacent to Crown Way and North Road. So exactly as it was in the legal notice. The next day, so they weren't exactly giving themselves lots of time to take on board anything scrutiny might say, the Cabinet met on the 14th of October. And they recorded that replace the Cathays High School buildings with new build accommodation on the Maindy Centre site adjacent to Crown Way and North Road. There are other Cabinet papers that list this, as I said, it's in the public domain, it's published, it's legal. So anybody who says to you, oh, we're not going to put a school on the Maindy Centre site, it's, well, can you show me where in the council papers and documentation, the legal notice, that they're not going to? So I'm afraid, for those who are hearing, perhaps from others, that, oh no, they don't mean to what they're saying, it's actually going to be something different. If they want to do something different, they need to withdraw the legal notice that they've had issued, they need to withdraw the decision that Cabinet has made, and which went before scrutiny. It then went to the Welsh Government for an indicative yes or no as to whether they could proceed. The consultation document that the council produced set out a number of people who by law are required to be consulted with and various other parties. Now you would think if somebody owns land that you want to build a school on, that they would be on that list of consultees. They are not. And in the report that the council published, following the consultation with the responses that they'd received, and the council's way of mediating them, i.e. gives us a chance to ignore them by saying we'll do something, there is nothing from the landowner. Now, the council, as we said, they are the sole trustee. They have to uphold and protect the covenant. Even if they wanted to change it, they are legally required under charity law to have put in an objection to the Education Department's plan to build on the site. Our Freedom of Information requests, and we've got one in with the Welsh Government at the moment to see if they received it, but the council perhaps lost their copy of it, to find out whether in fact they did write to the trustee, and whether the trustee, as required by law, to protect the interest in that land, responded. I think from the information we've had back that there is no evidence of that. Now we come on to the role of the Charity Commission. Facts. The Charity Commission, in a letter to Rhys ap Owen, who's the member of the Senedd for the South Wales area, confirmed the council is the sole trustee. The council must act solely in the interest of the charity when it is acting as the trustee. I have a copy of the letter here. The Charity Commission also recorded that the conflict of interest is clear. The council must be able to evidence through their records how they have managed that conflict of interest. As I said, our Freedom of Information requests have not found that evidence being presented to us, given to us. Now the Charity Commission says conflicts of interest sometimes crop up. It happens. And there are different ways of trying to manage it. One of the recommended ways is to appoint generally independent trustees. The council refused to do this. So it hasn't provided any evidence of how it has managed conflict of interest, and it has refused to go down one of the accepted routes recommended by the Charity Commission to appoint independent trustees. And the final fact is this. The Charity Commission also says in its letter, if the Council wants to proceed with its plan to build, Charity Commission consent is needed. So everybody is saying, hey, this is a done deal, we don't know what all the fuss about, we don't need more public meetings, we don't need consultations, we don't need to listen to residents, we don't need to listen to beneficiaries and users. Well, okay, you don't have to listen to us, but this isn't a done deal. If it was a done deal, they would have started groundworks already. The fact that they haven't is because the covenant is doing its job. It's protecting. Those are the facts.
Sorry to interrupt. Can I just ask what the charity's remit is, please, in regards to this?
Yeah, the question was, what is the charity's remit? On the website of registered charities, you have to say what is called your charitable objective, so what is your remit? And the remit of the Maindy Park Trust is to provide recreation and leisure time facilities for the people of Cardiff, and then in the paperwork behind it is the custodian
What's that word?
in perpetuity, so forever.
Is there anything in regards to mental health and the
Yeah,
next
it's just about
child?
well-being.
Yeah.
Yeah, is there anything in regards to mental health and well-being and the next child after another year? Might be catering for their child, for their education, what about the next person to them? Is there anything in regards to the remit plan?
The Charity Commission has various things that it accepts as what it calls charitable purposes. The Maindy Park Trust was set up a long time ago, before things like well-being, mental health, etc. was kind of. No, I'm just trying to answer the question. I'm not responsible for how it was set up, but yeah, it is important. I mean, when you think about it, the Margaret of Bute and other benefactors in Cardiff gave land in different parts of Cardiff because they recognised how important parks and open space were to people.
Sorry, just to add, I'm pretty sure that down in Roath, all the streets along Albany Road are actually named after the Marcus's children.
Yeah, I think that's the Macintosh ones, but okay, so
Same social construct though.
yeah. So this isn't a done deal. The sham of this supposed consultation, which Chris is going to cover later, the beneficiaries have been and still are being excluded. I've worked in the charity sector for 25 years. Abuse by trustees of their position and having a separate interest benefit by a decision they make as a trustee is incredibly rare. And that's because most people who are trustees are volunteers. They want to put something good back into their community. And they also have to put the charity above any loyalty, and the Charity Commission has this in its guidance. You must put the interest of the charity above any loyalty you owe to another person or another organisation. In all the years I've worked in the charity sector, I have never seen or read about such a clear, what I believe is a dereliction of duty on the part of them as the trustee. They did not send a notice to the trustee. The trustee has not registered a legal objection, as he should have done, to protect the interests of the trust. For that alone, I think they are not fit to be a sole trustee. There need to be others there to make sure that it works for the people. Now perhaps it's all hunky-dory and our freedom of information requests have just not got the bit of information out that kind of shows that actually behind the scenes the council have done everything absolutely perfectly right. It's just they haven't managed to find the paperwork for it. My challenge to them tonight is, if you've nothing to hide, you have nothing to fear. Put it in the public domain. A charity is a public body. The Charity Commission is also charged with making sure that the activities of trustees and charities promote confidence of the wider public interest. I would like them to respond to that challenge and say, right, we'll open our files, we'll open our books. Thank you.
They misled the community last year.
Go ahead. How can they build a store on the actual site? Because it's not
Well, they refused to show us the plans. As of, you know, we've been trying for over a year, so none of us know what they're actually planning for the site. I mean, the Freedom of Information said that they've got the information, but they won't release it to us because it will cause distress to the residents. Yeah, I've got a copy of it. Yeah, it will cause distress. Yeah.
There's a gentleman at the back right.
Oh, you get this, okay? Oh, do you want to speak in the mic? Okay.
There's obviously a clear conflict of interest here, and therefore they should have abdicated their position as trustees because of the conflict right from the word go. There's no way they could ever have been legally in this position. If there's a conflict of interest, somebody has to give way.
I don't disagree. The Charity Commission would require them to show the evidence of how they've managed that. They haven't shown in any of the Freedom of Information requests. I think that the Welsh Government were misled because there should have been an objection from the trustee. So if the Welsh Government actually wants to look again, then I think that probably gives them grounds to as to whether the proper legal process has been followed.
The other thing as well is what their purpose they're claiming now they're going to be doing with the land. It does not fall within the remit of the purpose of that land.
No, I mean, whether they wanted it for a school...
It's not within the remit.
No, whether they wanted it for a school, for a halls of residence, for a business park, it's not. It is restricted open access, so we need to make that absolutely clear. So if it's not available during the school term, that's not open access.
No, as I said, there's absolutely no way within the terms of the covenant that the building the school will actually fall within those remits. And I don't know how they can make a case for that. I just don't know.
Right, the microphone won't stretch that far.
Can I just say that Heath Park is covered by King George to the Trust, and a few years back they decided that certain documents hadn't been signed, and so they took that trust away. And it happened to be when the Labour Party got in, that we got it back again. Okay? But they didn't give us all the land that they were supposed to. And the area that's known as the Bank Square, which is the big car park, that was supposed to be returned for exactly the same purposes as you're saying, making markets.
Okay, if I'll just paraphrase that in Heath Park they had a similar issue with land that was taken away when it shouldn't have been, because apparently somebody found a little loophole in the legal documents, but some of it was able to be clawed back later, but not all of it. Is that a fair paraphrase?
It happened to us when the electricity club was closed. And when HTV left, it had been a farmhouse, and then we thought it would go back, but they built social housing there, and we protested, but to no avail.
That was just kind of contributing that this happened elsewhere.
I'd just thank you and the team for all the work you've done on this issue and the work that's on tonight. My question's on the covenant. When did that really emerge? It didn't appear in any of the union consultations, but I think that might have affected how people would have reacted in those consultations. But it really does appear that it's your work of finding the covenant that actually brought it out of attention.
There is some reference.
Yeah, definitely the October cabinet.
document that has about 375 paragraphs, and 2 of them mention an objection based on the covenant. I have to say, the people you see up front are only a small part of the team that have been digging away and delving and seeking the government's documents, land registry, freedom of information requests, speaking to the Charity Commission.
Can I say something on the covenant? I don't know if any of you watched the live webcast last October when they agreed to progress the school. There was over 4,000 objections on the Sacred Maindy petition, 425 objections for the school, then the scrutiny committee had another 100 objections, right? So when, and I think the scrutiny was a day, maybe 2 days before Cabinet. Scrutiny clearly not happy again with any of the proposals for the new school, but it went to Cabinet. We were watching with bated breath. There was one single question, not actually from a Cabinet member, she was like an observer, Emma, I can't remember her surname, Sandra, and she said, wouldn't you be breaking a legal covenant if you built on the Maindy Park site? And then have a guess who piped up? Russell Goodway, who is totally reliant on the school progressing, or he won't get millions of pounds for his little project down the bay. He went, that's like, that's not an issue, we've removed covenants before, it's a simple process. And that was the only question, although there was huge opposition, and that's who piped up, and they passed it. It just sailed through Cabinet. But you can see the council, they're not,
They're not acting in good faith.
They're supposed to be the trustee, but you can see the attitude. There's just no evidence that they're acting in the best interest at all.
You've raised the issue with regards to the council being the trustee, the sole trustee. What recourse is there for us as beneficiaries, etc., to maybe expand the trustees available for the land site so that there isn't such a large conflict of interest?
Okay, the question is there anything we can do to try and kind of change that situation where the Cathays is the sole trustee? Could I kind of paraphrase it? Okay. I mean, right at the end, we're going to have a little reminder of a few things that we would like you to do to help support the covenant for the future. The immediate thing is about responding to the land swap, but there is a longer term requirement, which is never again should the people of Cardiff and our communities be at the mercy of the council as the sole trustee of any charity, not just Maindy Park and the covenant, because they've shown they're not capable of handling the conflict of interest that arises. So the only way that the communities can be sure that decisions are made openly, transparently and fairly is for the governance structure to change for the charity. Now the Charity Commission has said, unless they find major legal fault with Cardiff Council, they would not ordinarily remove them as trustee. So it would be our job, once this immediate thing is over, is to put together a proposal to the council and to the Charity Commission to have a governance structure that is fit for the 21st century and reflects the needs of our community and genuinely represents our community, that's divorced from whoever wins an election or what party different councillors are in. It's for the people, serves the people, and is supported by the people.
Can I just say that the council approved the document? That means they cannot be trusted to be...
Yeah, I'm happy that the Charity Commission as a regulator will look at things and come to what I would call a robust decision based on the evidence that's put to them. It's important, and we'll come on to this right at the end, that it's clear to the Charity Commission that there is a need to look at the government structure for the future.
The other thing as well is if they con people into accepting other parts of land in place of, you've got no guarantee that that other piece of land won't be taken away from you again.
That's
because
going to be
those are not
covered
protected.
about the offer of the replacement land.
Yeah.
We're going to cover that.
Yeah.
We'll
Yeah.
come on to that in a minute, sorry. Just one
Yeah.
more question, then we must move on.
Can you tell me how much it is expected to cost to build a new velodrome?
I have seen a figure of 2.4 million, but the papers
That's just
that have the costs and the economic rationale and argument have been marked as confidential. So nobody actually gets to see them unless you're in the cabinet.
Well, it's
So-
2.4 for the Velodrome. Then it was it 1.6 million for the clubhouse. Then there's the cost of the closed circuit if that ever gets built. And then they've got to alter 2 roads and they purchased the ice arena and 10 acres of land so they could control the whole. You know, it's all connected in the revised master plan. That cost them 20 million to purchase the ice arena and the 10 acres of land.
flood?
Hmm?
Isn't that allowed you to flood?
They were told that.
Is it Cardiff one of the 6 cities in the world?
So
It's
it was
flood.
from
Cardiff Bay is not flood very soon.
But in the
Can the gentleman finish what he was sorry? Yeah. Sorry.
The reason I ask, I'm 81 years of age, I'm no longer drive, I'm blind in one eye, I'm deaf in both ears. For me to get into town, I have to walk 200 yards to get a bus. Has anybody seen the state of the pavements in Cathays? And how much money it would cost to replace them?
You touch on a subject very dear to my heart, because my wife loves cycling, she cycles everywhere, so I have nothing against cyclists. But I wonder why, when I look at the pavements around Penellan, which is where I live, and because I'm in my 60s now, I sometimes stumble on them. Hey, what about doing something for people who aren't cyclists? Can we just get to our local shops, to the library, to our doctor, to the newsagent, without being at risk of tripping?
I find the relator is really, really difficult.
Okay, just one last question, because we do have some other things we'd like. So the gentleman at the back.
I just wanted to make a point what you were all just saying about the pavements. It shouldn't be an either-or situation. You should stop thinking that you need to choose one or the other, because you don't.
Okay, just the point being made is we're sometimes put in a position of being set against each other. It shouldn't be, should we have better cycle provision or better pavements, it should be, we deserve both. So, sorry,
I've never spoken before, but I'm going to speak up now. This is all duty dealings as far as I can see. But if you're allowed to take that land, which is given by Low Butte, so was the castle grounds. So you could build houses on the castle grounds next. If you get away with one, you'll get away with everything.
this is the kind of the camel's nose in the tent scenario, which is if they can get away with one little bit at Maindy because they think this community doesn't matter. If they thought this community mattered, they would have had a meeting like this set up. But they've shown their contempt for you as a community by not doing it and by not attending. And so if they can do it here, then they will look to do it elsewhere.
Let's kick them out.
So, right, so Chris?
Name the people to let them vote that.
Well, whilst I hand over to Anne.
yeah, sorry, and as the chair of St. Maindy is going to speak for a few minutes on the actual land swap proposals, okay?
Hello. Sorry about the noise and for probably repeating what other people have already said. I'll try and skip over what you've already heard. I could give you a second chance to hear it, I suppose. So I kind of want to talk a bit about the proposal and compare what we currently have to what we would have under the proposal. So, as we've heard, Maindy Park Trust is the registered charity that owned Maindy Park, which is an open public space in Cathays. The council is the sole trustee and custodian of Maindy Park, which 100 years ago was given to the people of Cardiff for leisure and recreation uses exclusively and in perpetuity. So this makes us the primary beneficiaries of Maindy Park Trust. So in exchange for part of Maindy Park, Cardiff Council offered the trustee of Maindy Park, which is also Cardiff Council, replacement land, and have stated it will be protected in the same way the Maindy site is currently protected. However, the pieces of land being offered in Blackwood Fields and Caden Park are already publicly accessible green space, meaning the primary beneficiaries of Maindy Park, i.e. us, the people of Cardiff, gain nothing and lose 2/3 of the open public space at Maindy Park. The council, on the other hand, gain financially and materially. The protection being offered is only worth anything if it protects Maindy from development in perpetuity. If it doesn't, why would it stop the council developing on any other site? So, a number of other disadvantages for residents of the proposed swap. The proposed site in Butte Park is locked during the hours of darkness. During winter months, this can be as early as 4 p.m. in the evening. Maindy Park is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The proposed site in Butte Park is further from residential dwellings from Maindy Park, making it less safe, especially for those walking alone. The proposed site in Butte Park is not wheelchair friendly. There's no path, and in particular, in wet weather, is totally inaccessible. The concrete path around the current Maindy Park and Velodrome makes it wheelchair accessible in all weathers and at all times. Cathays and Gabalfa residents currently have access to Butte Park and Maindy Park, but would lose access to their local park at Maindy. Open space is particularly important in Cathays, as it is the most densely populated area in Wales. Caden Park is a 6-kilometre round trip from Maindy, meaning it is not within easy walking distance for most people. Elderly residents who currently have easy access to Maindy Park for walking would lose this amenity. If chosen, it would likely result in extra travel by users of Maindy. Caden Park, that is. So this would be in direct conflict with the Council's ambition to reach net zero by 2030. And this is not to mention the failure of the Council to comply with its own local development plan, which stipulates that proposals involving the loss or change of use of buildings currently or last used for community facilities will only be permitted if an alternative facility of equal quality and scale to meet community needs is available or will be provided within the vicinity, or it can be demonstrated that the existing provision is surplus to the needs of the community. Offering a smaller velodrome over 4 miles away and a patch of grass 2 miles away doesn't constitute providing alternative facilities of equal quality and scale in the vicinity. Sorry, I'm getting ranty. The plan also fails to comply with the Wellbeing of Future Generations Act, with over 1,000 children travelling from out of catchment. This would be far from local schools for local children. There is a clear conflict of interest with Cardiff Council being trustee and the third party wishing to benefit from the disposal of Maindy Park. So as part of the land exchange proposal, there was a surveyor's valuation of the site at Maindy Park of £215,000. That valuation is deeply flawed. It's based on treating the land as if the velodrome is decommissioned and the covenant is still in place. Neither of these would be true if the land was acquired by Cardiff Council acting as a developer. The cost of replacing the velodrome alone is £2.4 million, as we've heard, and this is before any demolition work is done at Maindy. Conflicting information about whether the pool, leisure centre and car park would be included in the land swap. Sorry, there is conflicting information. I should point out that some people today have been told that those facilities wouldn't come under the exchange for this in this proposal. However, yes, the conflicting information is still the only information that we can see online. Maps of the land do not correspond with each other. The beneficiaries cannot be claimed to have given informed consent under these conditions. So I think that's pretty much sums up what I wanted to say, and kind of just wanted to reiterate the fact that as the beneficiaries of Maindy Park, we only lose in this proposal. We don't gain anything. That's it. Thanks. Bye.
Any questions on this?
Right. I wish I had a mic that I could take round, but haven't said that.
Do you want to step up to the mic, the ones that are right at the back?
No, I won't have you ask a question. More recently, I've heard a proposal by the Maindy team that the valuation is being conducted on their site as well, under the CAF, and I've heard there's potential that that's going to be taken away at the same time and run by the school. I don't know whether anyone could shed light on that.
Oh yes. So have you read the surveyor's report?
No.
42 pages. It's almost the last page. It's very clear. Oh, sorry.
No, can you just repeat, because I don't think everybody necessarily heard what was being asked.
Oh, I think I heard what you said about what's the
No,
value.
Chris, you might have.
No.
You summarise it into the mic.
I think what the gentleman was asking was to do with the value of the leisure centre, and it hasn't been included in the valuation. Is that right?
Yeah, it's part of it.
Yeah, that's one of the points I'm covering in my personal objection. In the surveyor's report, if you read through it, and I hope you don't, you will see it says they've already acted for Cardiff Council, and they valued the velodrome before, but I don't know if they mean the whole site, it's not clear, but they also said we valued the leisure centre as financial assets. So, but they haven't included those values in the report, so it makes it difficult for people to decide whether, and because we've got conflicting information, one map shows the whole site going, and then the map in their actual report only shows a bit of the site, and that map again is different to the one they supplied last summer as well. So we've got 3 different maps really, and we've asked them to confirm which is the correct one. Absolute silence. We've had no response whatsoever. So as we've got conflicting and contradictory information, you can't really, as Anne said, make an informed decision on whether that is, is that the best value, the figure they've come up with. Well, it's not, is it? They've definitely valued it incorrectly as well. As Anne said, they've valued it as if it was a decommissioned velodrome that's still got a restricted covenant on it, which is completely wrong.
The gentleman's question was, he's heard that there's things going on now to remove the leisure centre and give it to the school. And
take it out of use during the day, the school day.
Totally take it out of use for the school to potentially running it as a community.
Wouldn't be surprised. But, you know, we keep asking these questions, but we're not getting any response. It's not very engaging of the trustee, is it? So,
although Cardiff Council answered a comment on Facebook regarding this issue 10 hours ago, and their response is there's no proposed changes to the existing leisure centre facilities at Maindy, and then someone else has commented again. They've come back saying, hi, if the school were to use the leisure centre, it would be under the same arrangements that are currently in use. That was 2 hours ago. Just liars, aren't they?
yeah. Basically. I personally wouldn't believe anything they say, unless we've got it in writing.
If we go back to the only information that has actually been decided and has been subject to a legal process, Maindy Park gets built on for a new school. I don't mind what somebody sat on the social media bit of the council says. They can say what they like. The only thing in law at the moment is they build on Maindy Park Centre site. It's what they consulted on, it's what they've issued the legal notice on, it's what scrutiny was held on, it's what the Cabinet decided on, and it's what they told the Welsh Government. So anything else that anybody puts on, unless they can show that those decisions have been properly rescinded and are no longer legally enforceable, so the council can't end up doing it anyway, then please, it's up to you whether you want to believe it or not. I think there has been deliberate misinformation, disinformation, misleading information, and a lack of information to confuse the community. And I think it's a disgrace. They have wanted to do this for some time. Chris has got documents going back 4 or 5 years. They have had plenty of time to think this all through, to put it together in a document. It may still be what their preferred option, but that it gives everybody all the information. So there aren't all these questions going around saying, well, is it map A, map 2, map C, whatever. It is grossly unfair to the people, and I think it treats us with contempt.
For starters, I've had no idea it was covenanted land.
Chris, there's a lady over there.
I just wanted to ask, because I came a bit late, this might be a stupid question, but whose bright idea was it to do the land swap? And how could they possibly think, have they got no intelligence at all, because how could they think swapping Maindy Stadium with a bit of land that we already, as a city, have access to? Who thought that was a good idea? Who was pushing that forward? And I might have missed it because I was late.
No, and you're not stupid. It goes right down. So the question was, who came up with this idea of swapping Maindy for a bit of grassland at Blackweir or at Cadelin? And the answer is one of the legal officers in the council. They think they've discovered a loophole. And maybe they have. Maybe at the end of the day this loophole will get the council off hook in terms of being able to build a new school on Maindy Park. But what part of tonight is about, and what we'll ask you to do at the end of the meeting, is to show to the Charity Commission that it's a sham. As Ant just said, there is no benefit to the community under the proposed land swap. We only lose.
Can I just say, if they value the land at 215,000, I'll give them 220 for it.
Okay. This isn't Dragon's Den or anything like that. But I think you have hit on a very important point. The assumptions that the surveyor, I'm not going to knock the surveyor because whatever terms of reference they were given, which haven't been published, they can only work on those. He's looked at land sold 4 or 5 years ago, a farmer's field, the other side of the M4. If you said to a developer, I will give you this amount of land inside Western Avenue, with all main services running to it, with a leisure centre attached to it, with a swimming pool for whoever you sell the land to for their housing, and has got access to public roads straight off, 215,000? I think you're looking at 1.5 million plus for the land. Now, okay, there may be issues over whether you can actually build in it, but using the surveyor's criteria that he's put down, they want to give a bit of grassland at Blackweir and say it's worth 215,000. Again, because the council, once they get control of it, they could actually use that for their development. Interesting, Hugh Thomas the other week when he was interviewed by Media Wales, in the one breath he's talking about the council wants to build more social housing, the next breath, oh, we want to take Maindy Park, but we'll give people a few bits of grass somewhere else. You put two and two together.
Do we know if any other sites have actually been considered for the new school? Or are they only considered Maindy?
Yeah.
Chris, you would be... Because not everybody would have got...
Have they considered any other sites apart from Maindy? That's a no.
I thought it might be, I just thought I'd better ask.
Yeah, we stumbled across a Freedom of Information response, was it about a week ago? And there's an email thread between Cardiff Education and 21st Century Funding, and they actually said, we want the Maindy lands because it'll be free.
That's right.
That's what it actually says. I couldn't believe it. And then the reason then, their justification for diverting education funds down to the bay is because the economic department hadn't got any money.
Okay, just one last question, then we'll hand over to Chris.
I was just going to say, do we know what land the council has sold in the last 15, 20 years within Cardiff that could have been used to build a school?
Okay,
but that's outside the remit.
So the question is, has the council been getting lots of money in by selling off bits of land that it owns in order to make money for other projects that it could have used? And I'm getting a nod from a couple of councillors here that yes, that sort of thing does happen. We don't have a figure, but let's say if they wanted to find an alternative site for a new school, I think they would be able to. The fact they don't want to is, as Chris has said, it's now in the FOIs. They don't want to have to pay for it. Sorry, do you mind if we? Because there'll be time for questions at the end. Because
Sorry, I had an email from Councillor Sarah and Mary saying they're inquiring about the Maindy Barrack site and the Company's House site, but neither were made available.
Okay, so the question was...
that was just on the point before about whether they could sort other sites.
Yeah, they have said that they've looked at the barracks and at Company's House. The barracks, I understand that because of security considerations and things, that would be a very long discussion, even if it were possible. Company's House, the discussion was held pre-COVID. And things we've heard from people who have family members working at Company's House is that there isn't a mass return to work. There's lots of empty offices and what have you. Told that they need secure storage. Well, actually, there's lots of secure storage around Cardiff and just outside Cardiff that would fit the bill. So I think if they went back now and said to HM government, look, you've got all this space here, we'd really love to have a new school, and it's been part of your great levelling up agenda because this is an area that hasn't had anything new like this for ages. How about it?
No. They could build a second school on the car park alone.
Okay, but because we have a limited time on the room, and we do want to cover everything, but there will be a chance right at the end for anything that hasn't been asked if you want to ask.
Chris is now going to speak for a few minutes on trustee engagement or lack of trustee engagement. It's more like it.
Yeah, I've just written out a few notes. Sorry, I've written out a few notes, so I'll just read through these about the lack of engagement. There are so many questions. Why in their proposals do the council keep giving different boundary lines in different plans and different consultations? The scheme now is different to the one that was in the original proposal. Why do the council want to increase the size of Cathays High by over 400 pupils, with many of that increase to come from Willows and Fitzallen catchments, where they're already building new schools with spare capacity? Why did the council claim they properly looked at alternatives like Company's House, but that we've done freedom of informations and these show that they've not engaged with Company's House. Why did the council put a tiny single advert in the Western Mail giving notice of the charity's intention to dispose of land with a link to information on the proposals that didn't work? These questions are just the tip of the iceberg. We've been in this process for over a year now, and the questions just keep piling up. A responsible council would look to examine the matters raised in a fair and transparent way. After all, the constitution of the council says all council officers, in performing their duties, must act with integrity, honesty, impartiality and objectivity. Unfortunately, both council officers and elected members have completely failed in keeping to these values. From day one of this process, the council have not had any real engagement with the Cardiff public. In fact, they have actively avoided any engagement. The council has a clear conflict of interest in being both developer and trustee. From day one, they should have engaged and informed the owners of the land, that is, the people of Cardiff, it's your land, on how they planned to address this conflict of interest. And sadly, they haven't done this. Instead, they've run a development process that has been completely back to front. Before owning the land, Cardiff Council, the developer, has run a consultation process and a statutory consultation process to develop Maindy Park, which has been riddled with errors and misinformation. The council have ignored protests from the thousands who signed the petition. The council have failed to engage with the huge numbers of objections they've had to the proposed scheme. They've just ignored them. With the end result, the council have approved their scheme to move the school across the road and build on covenanted land managed by the Maindy Park charity. To comply with charity requirements, they are now asking for views on the proposals which they say will be considered. Do they really believe that at this 11th hour, and after all the money they've spent, the council cabinet will be truthful and honest and say, hang on a minute, it's clearly both morally and technically wrong to seize land, charity land, owned by the people of Cardiff. We made a big mistake here. We should have properly engaged the local people before taking the charity's land. I think hell would need to freeze over several times before that happened. But it's really important that you write to the council and protest in the strongest terms. At the end of this process, and regardless of the outcome, we will collate all the objections and all the evidence that we can of this lack of meaningful engagement by the council, and present it to the Ombudsman, and we will push for a full public inquiry, because this isn't how democracy works. Ultimately, this is about an abuse of power by the council. This is basically a corporate type of land seizure of a much cherished, loved and protected parkland and green space. Thank you.
In the council to Rwanda.
Actually, I think it was proposed, but Rwanda refused to have them.
Right, I've got two things that I just, a bit of food for thought when you come into hopefully putting your objections. There's two things I'd like to bring to your attention, right? I mean, we sort of touched on it slightly already. Why has the trustee accepted the findings in the surveyor's report? Right, that's the question. The surveyor's report has raised many questions, issues. It is fundamentally flawed in certain areas. Outright errors, information is missing, and there appears to be a serious undervaluation of the charity land, which will obviously directly impact on the replacement land being offered, okay? We still haven't been able to get clarification on which map is correct. You know, as of today, we've asked and we've asked and we asked. So, you know, we're still none the wiser. And I'll just throw this into the pot now. This is from yesterday. One of the Cathays councillors, Chris Weaver, has now stated that he's gone back and he's checked with somebody. We don't know if it's the developer or the trustee, but they haven't finalised what area of charity land that education will be taking. Right, so if they haven't done that, how can we have a consultation? So obviously the area of land that they're saying we need to, you know, have an opinion on, how can we possibly do that based on what we've just been now told by a local Labour councillor? Basically, we can't provide an informed response on what little information has been provided. It is contradictory, woefully lacking in detail, and now it doesn't actually identify the area of land the LEA want to appropriate and replace. So how can this be a valid consultation? Just, you know, a bit of food for thought there. And then the other one, because I've been thinking about this a lot, who's the trustee, right? Paul Orders, who was the Chief Executive for Cardiff Council, emailed myself this week and has told me now that the Strategic Estates Department is acting on behalf of the trustee. So we still don't know who the actual trustee is. Now, I've got a big problem with that. The same department who would have been involved in purchasing the ice arena and the 10 acres of land for the revised Sports Village Master Plan, the same master plan which is reliant on millions of pounds from the education budget, which can only happen if the covenant is removed from the current site. So how can we have, you know, do you see what I'm getting at? You know, it just doesn't sit quite right, does it? So in my mind, there's a clear conflict of interest. How can we have the Strategic Estates, you know, basically acting as a trustee when they've been involved with processes which are reliant on having the covenant removed? And it just doesn't make any sense, does it? So I just thought I'd, you know, put that thought out there. Right, we're going to finish up now. Oh yeah, sorry, yeah.
Can I have some more, or do you have any more details about that land swap and what the status of that land is then? Because it's not used, it's got the all-weather cricket pitches on it. So what status does that land have? And should people around there be thinking about what should happen to that land?
Well, it says it hasn't got any protection, doesn't it? In the covenant notice.
I've asked the question of Councillor Burke Davis, who's now taking on responsibility for parks. Just what is the threat to Butte Park, please? Because the leader of the council has now said on 2 occasions that 2 areas of land in Cardiff need additional protection. You'd only need additional protection if there's a threat to it. But leave aside whether a covenant, if they switch it, if it can't protect Maindy, wouldn't protect it. Why do these 2 specific areas need protection? Now, Councillor Hugh Thomas has decided not to engage on that. In fairness to Councillor Burke Davis, she has only just taken on the responsibility, and she got back to me very quickly to say, I'll look into it, please bear with me. I suspect that nothing will come until after the deadline has passed. The 20th of June.
We don't know what that status is.
We don't know. We also know that the council announced on the 20th of May that a part of that land was going to be a community orchard. So quite why it thinks that land will be under threat when you're just about to plant 50+ trees in an orchard that is going to be there for years and years and years, I don't know. Gentleman over there?
This on here, this is the email address to send objections to.
Yeah, on your seats there is some information that includes the response address. It's also on the Facebook page of the campaign and on the website. Okay, well, do you use email? Yeah, you can email them. The most important thing is we put lots of information on the website and the campaign page to help you. But if it's not a help, what matters is that you just say, it's important to me that this space is retained for open access all year round because I work in it. I take the children in it. The dog has a play in it. It's wheelchair accessible. I don't have to get on a bus or drive a car. From your heart, why the space is important to you.
Can I just add on the email point?
Sorry. So would it be a good idea if you could write a template letter that people could start with? Because there's a lot of information and it might just be, for me as a dyslexic, that would really help.
Okay.
My other point is, should we all contact Sophie Howe from the Future Generations Commissioner?
So two things. One is, could we provide some sort of template, because there's a lot of information out there. I don't like template letters because the council would just say, it's just somebody decided they haven't, it's not their views. So what we try to do is to put information, have a read, pick what strikes you and say, yeah, that's really true for me, and put one or two in. But as I say, even if you don't use any of that information, just say from your heart why you want to protect this space for you, for now, and for the future.
Yeah, Anne's put a link on our Facebook page. I don't know if it's on Twitter as well.
Yeah, you can scan, if you've got a smartphone, you can scan a QR code and it will link you through to a thing that fills in all the addresses, fills in your hello, and all of that.
Yeah, Anne's done a link, which will take you through to a page which has got like a whole list of ideas of what you can use to object. And then if you click on the response, it'll take you straight through to the email page, which will then automatically CC it to ourselves and the Charity Commission as well. So you basically, you can copy and paste all the ideas that we've put out there and just put it straight onto the email, and that's it, and press send. That's what we've got to do.
Yeah.
But if you haven't got access to social media, if you give us your details, you've got a clipboard, and we'll try and sort something out.
The second point that's been made was, should we all write to Sophie Howe, the Future Generations Commissioner? If you would like to do that, please do. She obviously has to balance things like provision of new modern schools for the next generation of youngsters. So I think she will note it, but she won't necessarily want to adopt it as something, because she has to balance those things. What is important, I mean, Andy's going to talk about this in a moment, is who we think needs to be working for us because they represent us.
Can I just suggest one thing? The covenanted land is a very good point to use in anything. So many years ago, the allotment land over by the bypass came up as being wanted to be used for everything, and that's covenanted land, and the Welsh office and everything was involved. And the covenanted aspect of it went through in the end. So please stress that whenever you make a complaint, because that is still as it is. We're going to build on all that. And the Welsh office
Like Jeremy said, the decision they've made is illegal.
Exactly. And
It's
so
illegal.
this happened pointed out that it's all conflict of interest. And then he was also another Welsh office person who said, you're in total conflict, you are, because you're representing us, but you are the Welsh office. So yeah, it was put in two camps. So in the end, the whole thing died, because there's all so much conflict going on, and the covenant part of it. So stress it.
Yeah, so do stress the importance of the company. It's for the people, open access, park use. Just last question, and then we must wind up.
I'd just like to make two quick comments and then ask one question. For the last 20 years, until Christmas last year, I was the head coach of Maindy Flyers cycling team in Maindy. You commented about how long these plans have been going on for. I was first asked by the BBC what I thought about Council's plans to redevelop Cathays High School in 2008 after Geraint Thomas had won a gold medal in Beijing. That was the first time I was asked about, and my response was, they can't build it here because it's an old tip. But that was the first time I was asked. My second comment, I'm one of 3 signatories that has written on behalf of Maindy Flyers, published the letter now, asking about the new facilities that are being provided. We've commented about engagements. We wrote to 3 specific councillors who are responsible for this. None of them have replied. That was 6 months ago. My question, and Chris mentioned it there, is the legality of this. Is there a way in which this can actually be challenged within the courts?
Does he have legal representation?
So the question was, is there a legal process? Could it be challenged, in the courts or whatever? The Charity Commission would be the first people to say this isn't acceptable. They can't say that until the council actually sends them what they're proposing and the grounds for it. So as I said, if you're being told it's a done deal, the council has had the consultation a year and a half ago. It had the plans then. It could have put it to the Charity Commission then. Why hasn't it? Because the Covenant is protecting the land. They are trying to find a way to get round it. They think the land swap is going to be their route. I personally, from my experience of charity law, don't think it is going to be. I could be proved wrong, but if the Charity Commission says, well, we accept what the council is saying, then we would look at a legal process to challenge that decision, and that would then be a legal process.
Have Friends of Butte Park not challenged the land swap?
The Friends of Butte Park has only just got started up again. It had fallen into kind of disuse. They've only got their first meeting tomorrow, so I wouldn't like to kind of second guess or put words in their mouth.
Somebody from the Friends group is here actually. He's left now, but somebody did. I recognised him.
Do you know where they're meeting?
Sorry, I don't. But
I can find out.
sorry, but this does have to be the last one.
The meeting's in Pontcar tomorrow.
Andy.
I just wanted to. There's one other thing. There's a message that we want you all to take away from this meeting tonight. Well, Jeremy's just covered it really. This is not a done deal, and far from it, although the council are giving everyone the impression it is. The Charity Commission are yet to commence their inquiry into the confirmed conflict of interest. There is no doubt that this is a serious conflict of interest given the council's actions to date. They will have to provide evidence and demonstrate to the Commission how they have managed this and acted in the best interest of the charity. The planning application for the school, if and when it materialises, that has to be approved. 21st century funding for the school has yet to be approved, and they've yet to receive a business case. We've already touched on this. The Velodrome business case is yet to be approved. Given that the council, well, Alan has already mentioned that they've written to them saying it's not an adequate replacement. The current design is basically not fit for purpose as it currently stands, which will have serious implications for the business case and the financial viability of it. So if it did get approved, I think they would be leaving themselves wide open, and I'll just leave that at that. The trustee has not consulted, engaged with the beneficiaries to this day. This process should have at least started in December 2020, when the LEA sought approval for a consultation on the proposals, which specifically stated they were going to build the new school buildings on the charity land. which is illegal. 1.5 years later, we get a tiny press notice on a single day and a single email address that won't acknowledge, let alone answer any queries arising from these proposals. This hardly equates to trustee engagement. So hopefully you can see it's nowhere near a done deal. We just got to keep fighting on. But now Andrew's going to come and say a few words and...
I've just been given the notes on what people can do. Right. I mean, as the others have said, the council are going to try and fob people off, and they're going to try and fob off the Charity Commission and say they've done a proper consultation and all the concerns have been addressed. We have to make sure that the Charity Commission knows that we as beneficiaries have been excluded from the process, we've been ignored, and we've been given misleading and contradictory information. So you've got the leaflets, you've got the highlighted bit on the second page is the email address for the responses. It's just very important that everybody puts their own view, or they can look at the templates for some suggestions and ideas. But really, I would say that you have to put your own spin on whatever you put, because otherwise they will say, we just received so many identical responses, so we can discount all of them. It's also very important, as has been said, that you put that you're a resident of Cardiff, because otherwise they may try to say, oh, there's no evidence this is a Cardiff resident, so we've discounted their email. Speak to your family, speak to your friends, speak to your neighbours. If they're in agreement that the covenant should be removed, then encourage them to respond as well, because the more the merrier. Right, also, what else can you do? A local government is a devolved matter, so you can, we would recommend that you contact your Senate member, whether it's Jenny Rathbone, Judy Morgan, ask them to request a proper investigation into what the council are doing. Charity law is not a devolved matter, so write or contact your local MP. I think it's Joe Stevens and...
I've contacted Joe Stevens. We can have close to that.
I don't think you'll get a reply until after the end of the consultation period, because that is the way that they work. If I can say that I sent my response and I got an acknowledgement from the email address immediately. Since that, then I've sent 3 or 4 emails asking simple questions and clarification, including which map is the right map. I've received an acknowledgement or a reply. So that's the level of engagement. And the first one of those was the question I sent on the 30th of May. So if they can respond within 24 hours, if they can respond within 24 hours that they've received your response, why can't they respond within a couple of weeks with an answer to the question that you asked? Again, so write to your local MP, ask the Charity Commission, request that they ask the Charity Commission to launch an inquiry. The Covenant, as Jeremy has said, has worked for the last 100 years. It needs our support so that it can carry on working. Is there anything else to add? As Christine has said, the school, we are not anti-school. We've got no problem with the need to refurbish or rebuild Cathays High School, but what we want is parity. When Willows was planned to be built on playing fields, the local community objected. They purchased alternative site. Fitzallen, they purchased the site. The new school in T-Glass, they've purchased the site. Why are they treating the residents of Cathays and the pupils who will go to that school differently? Fairness. We can all speculate. Personally, my speculation is if they don't take Maindy, they can't get money, they want the money for the sports village. So they will not even consider an alternative site. And the question is, again, because we're not against the schools, why compromise on the school children by giving them an unsuitable site that is too small for their requirements? Why have 1,000 children travelling into what will continue to be a constrained site? I mean, that's the school matter. So the school, we will do our best to put in objections when it comes for final funding from the 21st century schools. We've been contacting the relevant Welsh Government ministers. We will continue to fight with the Covenant, and we will, when it goes to scrutiny, challenge the business case for the new Velodrome. We will try every single angle. They've built a house of cards, and we really only have to remove one of those cards, and it all comes tumbling down. The sports village is reliant on the Velodrome going. The Velodrome going is reliant on the Covenant being lifted, and the school is reliant on the Velodrome going and the Covenant being lifted as well. It's all interlinked. You can't separate them. Today is to speak about the land swap, but just to reiterate to people, we will continue doing what we can to fight it on any front that we can. And if any of you here today have got any skills, knowledge or experience that you can bring to it, feel free to, all the contact details are here. Thanks all for coming. I think it's a bigger turnout than we were expecting. And like I say, thanks very much, and I'll put it on to Chris for the last word.
Right. We've been going at this for a year now, working behind the background, and I don't like to say this, but we're going to be doing a little collection tonight. If anyone could give like £1 something, we've just paid £150 for the leaflets now again, and it's all coming out of our own pocket, so we're going to sort of a bit on the scrounge. If anyone would like to donate £1 towards the next if that's okay with everybody. You don't have to, but we thought tonight we're going to try and see if we can get a couple of pounds towards the next lot of leaflets. Because I think it costs £100. We had 3,000 done last week. They've already been delivered. Oh yeah, and thanks to the extra help we had this time delivering the leaflets. Yeah, that was help. That was a great help. So, but yeah, the main message is this is not a done deal by far. Okay, and we hope you realise that, and it's worth. It is worth putting. We don't want people to think, oh, what's the point? They're going to do it anyway. Not thinking of it.
You've shown the heart of the community actually cares deeply about what happens on their patch. Thank you.
Can I just say, please, coming to the meeting tonight, raised what was said, I am quite assured now that they
Let's put it this way, if it was a done deal, they'd have had shovels in there already. They know they're in a fight. I don't know who's going to win.
You think we're going to run over?
None of us knows the future, but they know they're in a fight. That's why it's taken them so long to get to this point. And they really, I think, don't know how to reverse out of this situation and save some face.
Yeah, but we must stress they have to. They haven't a choice. They have to go to the Charity Commission and request permission. Not to obtain a some sort of order, but they were a choice. They have to, and I don't know how long the Charity Commission will take to, their decision. But for once, it's not going to be down to the councils. Just put on our next leaflet, they can't mark their own homework this time. It will be the Charity Commission. So. Yeah.
That's it, we're done.